Jones. I'm Romeo.
Hey there, I'm Brooke.
I'm Demi, and on today's report, Seattle loses almost 20% of their police force. Body camera footage has been released in the death of Ronald Green. Texas executes Quintin Jones, and the CDC releases new COVID-19 data.
Yes, Republicans and Democrats are battling over a January 6th commission. Major companies are boosting their starting pay. We've got an update on the age you should get colon cancer screenings, and Billy Porter breaks his silence on something important and very close to his heart.
We have all that and so much more. So if you're ready, it's our voice and our truth. So let's talk about it.
Authorities in Texas have carried out a death row execution for the first time in 10 months. 41-year-old Quintin Jones was executed by the state of Texas Wednesday night. He had been convicted of murder more than 20 years ago. The AP reports the execution took place without media witnesses. A spokesperson for the prison called that an error, saying it won't happen again. In 1999, Jones was convicted of beating an 83-year-old woman to death, Berthena Bryant. She was his great aunt. Court documents show he was convicted of hitting her with a baseball bat when she refused to give him $30 for drugs. He was sentenced to death in 2001 in Tarrant County, and he'd been on death row ever since. His family had long forgiven him, had been pleading for his sentence to be changed to life in prison, saying he was remorseful and that he had changed for the better during his decades in prison. I want to talk about the fact that there were no media witnesses. So what had happened was media witnesses were actually in an office waiting to be called. And Sister Helen Prejean, obviously everyone knows her name from Dead Man Walking. That was the movie, right? That was about largely about her activism, a bit of her story. She tweeted, "Due to the lack of media witnesses, we have no idea what happened during the execution, no idea if anything went wrong, and no idea if protocols were followed." A lot of people frustrated with what the state is calling a mistake, saying that witnesses are supposed to be, especially media witnesses, are supposed to be the eyes. And there has been a lot of issues and confusion. And you remember when there were issues years ago with lethal injection drugs when this first started, and other states were talking about using replacement drugs.
Yeah.
And so, a lot of activists are upset today, feeling like their eyes and ears weren't there.
Yeah, and you're right. And as we talked about this yesterday, we were hoping this wouldn't happen due to what his family was saying, that, he felt remorse, like they just wanted him just to have life in prison instead of this. And you also was comparing the same case to, was it a white man in what state was it in?
It was another man in Texas, yeah,
Right.
that the governor had agreed to commute his sentence.
Yeah, that was in 2003.
Under similar instances where he had killed a family member and the family had since forgiven him and saying that he had changed his life.
Yeah.
So
his name was, oh, no, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. Go ahead, Ron.
No, I'm passing.
No, I was going to say his name was Thomas Whitaker. I was just going to put his a name to a face. But so I was reading a Twitter thread about someone that was his last phone call, one of his last phone calls before his execution. And so she pretty much said that before he entered the execution chamber, he called her for the last time. And she said that he was very sad but grateful that his story touched so many people that didn't know him or that needed to be touched. She says that he hoped people would pick up the pebble and throw it into the next pond and let it ripple out. She also says that Quinn's last words to her were, and to all of us, were keep doing the good work. And there was also a letter that he wrote, Romeo, you touched on that a little bit, about him saying that he understands that that he is not innocent, but he wanted another chance. He says, all I ever wanted was a chance in life, another chance to prove that I'm more than what got me on death row, more than what the world may think I am. And so I just wanted to read that because a lot of people online, Brooke, like what you're saying is, yes, he's not innocent, but did he deserve to die? Is the world a better place now that he's gone? And so that's been a large question that I've seen all over social media today about, was this needed? Did this need to happen?
And I just think about what went through his mind when he made that final phone call, knowing what was about to happen in minutes, maybe less than an hour away from that time. Like I just, prayers out to his family, man. Really.
On one hand, you do have the lawmakers who still say, and people who still strongly believe in the death penalty, saying that, they feel like people should pay for their crimes in this way,
right?
And that this is what victims deserve, right? On the other hand, you also do have a lot of facts about death row. We know it costs, millions of more taxpayer dollars because of, the appeals process, the mandatory 10-year appeals process. So you know that it costs more than life in prison, even life in prison without the possibility of parole. You also know, and I think we talked about this last week, since the Supreme Court allowed the death row in states, the states that chose not to, directly 20 years after that happened, they didn't see an increase in homicides compared to other states that kept the death penalty. And so activists have long said it's not even a deterrent. And then again, we go back to, we talk about criminal justice advocates, who don't believe anybody should kill anybody, even the state. They don't believe the government should have the right to put you to death. And so I think there are a lot of things, obviously, to think about. And this is especially for people at home who haven't decided how they feel. Yeah.
And again, it's an ongoing debate about how people feel about death row altogether. Moving on, Ronald Green, a black man who died after pursuit by police, Louisiana State Police in 2019, can be heard apologizing to officers and tell them he was scared before being tasered, dragged, and kicked in newly obtained body camera video footage by the Associated Press. Take a look.
I'm sorry. I'm scared. I'm just scared. Get out of the car. Get out of the car. I'm driving me, Chris. Put your hands behind your back. Taser. Put your hands behind your back. Behind your back. You're about to get it again if you don't put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back. I'm sorry.
We see that way too often. The AP posted 3 clips totaling just over 2 minutes in length from the video it says was 46 minutes long. CNN previously reported that Green died after struggling with law enforcement following a pursuit that ended in a crash on May 10th, 2019, according to the preliminary report from the Criminal Investigations Division of the Louisiana State Patrol. 2 officers involved in the incident were reprimanded for their actions that night, including not following procedures in relation to their body-worn cameras. One of those officers is on administrative leave related to a separate incident, and the other received a 50-hour suspension, according to an LSP spokesperson. A 3rd officer died in a single-vehicle crash in September. They're saying that this wasn't authorized to be released. This happened in 2019. When were you thinking about it was a good time to release this information? Again, it's because the truth is on the camera. You see everything that happened to this young man, screaming, saying that he's scared. Admit, this is not new to police officers. If someone tries to run away from the police officer or if they're nervous, I understand that. Some people that get pulled over today are going to be nervous because of what they've been seeing on TV. But again, this happened for over 9 minutes. After he was tasered and left there where no one attended to make sure he was okay, he attempted to roll over on his side or his back so he could breathe, and they came and kicked him in the back. So there's definitely no end to the story as of yet.
You guys, I'm at a loss for words right now because
it's hard to keep composure with
that video right there. It was actually hard for me to watch it earlier today. I saw a couple of headlines that read he died in police custody, and I just want to clear that up, that he didn't die in police custody. He was tortured. He was murdered in police custody. He was dragged by, like Romeo, like you said, beaten and handcuffed and dragged by his legs like a slave, like an animal on the streets, and then tased on top of that. He didn't die in police custody. This was just absolutely insane, on top of the fact that it took 2 years for this camera footage to come to light. I don't even want to hear what any of these cops had, hours or whatever. These cops need to go directly underneath the jail. That is the only justifiable actions for these cops moving forward. There's nothing else. 50 hours of community service, so wherever you had to off the force pay, it is jail. It is jail because they lied about what happened to his family, what happened to the community, keeping this for 2 years and then showing this on the internet. I'm shook. I'm disappointed, and I can't even believe that we as Black people have to sit here and watch our people be traumatized and tortured like this on camera, on body camera footage, and they get to walk away as if nothing happened. How can you sleep at night knowing that you did this to someone?
I think also, a big frustration as a journalist is how long it took for us to be able to see that. and that obviously it is a horror show to watch, but just, you know, the public deserves for us, I believe, for us to have the right to ask the people in charge about what we saw there. We need to be able to break down what we saw there. We need to be able to get answers about what we saw there. And it's just frustrating how long it took for us to be able to even see that.
And they're still saying that it shouldn't have been released now. They're upset about that. Yeah. Imagine that.
You know, and then just really, if I can add one more point, it makes me upset when we have a Derek Chauvin's murder trial, that just wrapping that back in, that if they do go to trial, then you plead the fifth. No, I want to know I don't want to know temporary insanity. I don't want to hear that it was justified. I really would like to get into the minds and know what would make you think that this was okay during that time. What would make you think that this is a part of being a police officer in any scope, you know? I'm just so disappointed. So moving right along here, guys. So the Seattle Police Department is reportedly struggling under the backlash of recent police reforms. This news comes as the state of Washington has just enacted a dozen police reform laws following nearly a year of protests over police brutality. According to one social justice group, more than $840 million were cut from U.S. Police Department budgets in 2020. The budget cuts have caused a shortage of police in Seattle. The police chief tells CBS News that 260 officers, which is almost 20% of the force, have left in the past year and a half. Officer Clayton Powell has served nearly 27 years on the streets of Seattle, and it was his goal to stay on the force for 30 years. Although he's only 3 years away from his goal, he's retiring early. He says the support that we had in my generation of policing is no longer there. I was really happy to hear that last little piece, that being honest about it's not the same, right? Being honest that policing back in my day is not the same. Someone who's 3 years away, that 3 years, some people stay in a depressed state of mind at their jobs just to get those 3 extra years that could help you take care of your family when you want to retire. So the fact that he is willing to give up his power and whatever position that he was on the police force because he knows that it is not the same speaks volumes. And so I'm happy to hear stories like that. At the end of the day, if you don't have fun with it anymore, if you don't feel like you're there serving and protect, you don't need to be a police officer.
I mean, I think that's it. Just listen to what he said there. I think that that's part of defund the police, abolish the police. It's part of their argument there. Mm-hmm. So it's that there's a battle between what they believe is true public safety and someone wanting to reach a pension level in their job. And that sometimes those two don't go side to side. I think we talk about other forms of public jobs, right? Elected officials, for instance. We talk about those other government jobs. People are frustrated with the fact that there are lifelong politicians simply because that's just what they want to do for a living. True. They want politicians who want to help people.
Yeah, make change.
Exactly. And so the other part of this argument, you do have police officers who are going to complain and be upset and criticize. And absolutely, we should listen to the people who do the job, right? That's part of the story. When things like this change, when budgets change that affect their ability to have jobs. But also the other side of this argument is that part of this situation means that the city of Seattle's residents actually get to vote and choose how they would like to use $30 million for programs that create what they believe to be true public health and safety. So that's where this money is going. Okay. And I think that's also an important part of this story.
It is. And I love that part of the story. But then, you know how they say it's two sides to every story, because you have police officers, not saying this is a disclaimer, this is the truth. Not all police officers are bad. We see these things that happen over and over on video, right? And we do know this, a change is needed. But some fear there's going to be a gap. Right? When you have police officers walking away or not doing their job 100% because they feel like they're not protected or they're at risk, then crime can go up in certain communities like ours, like black communities. Crime can go up due to the lack of having someone control that area at that time. So to me, there is a gap of how we weed out and how we reform or how we do what we got to do to make it better.
So I love that you bring that up, because there was a point that was made that made me think, 2 points. One, the fact that there are already plenty of rich, white, wealthy communities in America that aren't policed like poor black communities. Right. There are plenty of neighborhoods that we decide they don't need to be watched and controlled like animals. Plenty of neighborhoods, and crime doesn't go crazy. So, I think a lot of activists are saying, can we just simply treat these neighborhoods like these neighborhoods? And also, my friend David Dennis Jr., he is so smart, and he always makes me think, and he tweeted something, and he was like, I actually don't know anybody who has been that a robbery has been stopped because of a police officer, because they typically talk about, well, what happens when you get robbed? And they're like, well, no, we want to create systems so I don't get robbed.
Right.
It's not as important to me that the police catch the person after I get robbed. That's important, but it's more important to me to prevent me getting robbed. And the system that we have right now doesn't prevent me getting robbed. And other people are saying, hey, we want to create different systems and different forms of public safety, help people get jobs, for instance, help people with mental health support so that the robbing stops that way. Because right now people are still getting robbed. It's just whether the person who robs them gets caught or not. And we also know that's not really a deterrent.
Yeah, that is so true.
I don't know. It all just makes you think.
No, it definitely does. Definitely does. We know there's a lot of work to be done.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, well, business owners in Fulton County are asking for federal rescue money to keep them afloat. Here's Angelique Proctor from Fox Atlanta with the details.
It's been tough, but it's been okay.
Working out is a way of life for trainer and JBT fitness manager Les Carson. But once the pandemic hit, the gym closed its doors. It is reopened, but the clients have not returned to the Buckhead gym that has been a staple for more than 20 years. The losses just keep mounting.
It's not like a couple $100 or $1,000 here. I mean, these are big numbers. You're like, at least 50% of what we were making, that's the negative. Thousands of dollars in the hole, even with some help.
Carson says the gym could desperately use some of the $206 million in the federal government's rescue plan. The Fulton County Commission had the item on its agenda yesterday, but its author, Commissioner Khadijah Abdul-Rahman, asked that it be held after Chairman Rob Pitts and Commissioner Marvin Arrington both had to leave unbeknownst to her. Lemonade Events Productions owner Brandon Tanjay urged commissioners to pass the resolution Wednesday so he too can keep his doors open.
It just delays the process. It delays the timeline that we can actually provide the help and the relief, especially since you're being hit hard by a pandemic financially. It puts you behind the 8 ball.
The delay in the vote is curious because Republican Lee Morris is expected to support the measure. Commissioner Abdul-Rahman asked that it be held because Chairman Pitts left the meeting after 3 hours to go to his daughter's graduation, and Commissioner Marvin Arrington said he left to go to court.
I had a court appearance yesterday that I had to leave out for, but certainly there were 5 people there. There were more than enough commissioners there to pass it.
I wish they wouldn't play politics on people's lives.
All right, the U.S. House of Representatives have passed a bill to establish a commission to investigate the January 6th attack on the Capitol, earning relatively little support from Republicans. 35 Republicans joining all Democrats in support. The final vote was 252 to 175. As The Hill reports, the bill's chances are slim as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell has come out in strong opposition. More than 140 national security leaders who served under Democratic and Republican administrators have called for a commission like this, saying it is critical to preventing future attacks. Mitch McConnell has been very public and outspoken about the fact that he will vote against this as it stands right now. And it causes you to take a look back at what happened that day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people watching are wondering why everybody would not be on board with something like this.
Because some of them are cowards, if you don't mind me saying that. Who's the representative? Andrew Clyde? The story we heard, is that, I'll make sure I'm saying his name right. Is that the one that said that wasn't insurrection that day?
Oh, right.
The one that was on the photo helping barricade the door so no one gets into him. You sure you wasn't scared? He said it was almost like just like a field trip. Are you kidding me? 5 lives were lost. So when you think about what happened that day, this is the moment where Republicans can stand on their own feet instead of continue to lean on what Trump says. That's what goes. You have to be your own man, your own woman in this situation, because this is the time to do it. And it doesn't like it may not happen.
You know what I thought was really interesting online? They are treating the 35 Republicans that voted. They're treating those that decided to vote yes. The 35 Republicans, they're treating them like they're heroes. Literally, I'm looking at this tweet right now. I wish I could show you guys. It says the 35 courageous members who voted. And then their photos are everywhere. Their names. I mean, you would think that this was like. This is very important. But those 35 Republicans, they're being treated very, very well online. So I don't know how this makes them feel. But the 175 other Republicans, I don't know how they're feeling right now because we don't see anything about their names on Instagram or Twitter.